invested a lot in seeing the birth of this new nation in Africa. Our hopes are that it will be a viable state, at peace, of course, with itself first and foremost, and its neighbors as well, and meet the aspirations of its war-weary people who fought hard and long to achieve independence and statehood. Today, the ongoing crisis, therefore, is threatening in particularly to derail those gains and further plunge the country and the region into a quagmire of civil strife. This surely is not acceptable by all standards. As leaders, we cannot stand idly by and allow that to happen. We are indeed mindful as well of the long-term security implications that instability in South Sudan poses to the Horn of Africa and the continent as a whole. I therefore call on President Salva Kiir Mayardit, the government and all stakeholders in South Sudan to once again set aside their political differences in the supreme interests of the nation by urgently engaging in dialogue as well as reconciliation. I also call on Dr. Riek Machar to respond as well positively to the overtures of peace, dialogue, and reconciliation for the sake of Sudan and Africa as a whole. Only a political solution will bring about the peace that the people had yearned for throughout their recent history. In this connection, I therefore welcome the offer of President Kiir to engage in unconditional dialogue with rival elements of the SPLM. We call on both sides as well to the conflict to indeed demonstrate exemplary leadership and goodwill so that calm and indeed normalcy could be restored for the people to resume their peaceful daily routines. I call on you as well as leaders of the SPLM to rise above your political differences and make those hard choices that your people expect from you, including, of course, rallying your diverse followers to unite, and indeed unite around the national interest and against tribalism. You must preach unity and not sow any divisions. It is within your powers, of course, to contain the current crisis by avoiding any further escalations. That is what your citizens expect from you. That is what, indeed, Africa expects from you. And that is what the international community also expects from you. And you cannot afford to fail them. Let me take this opportunity to sincerely thank the African Union, the United Nations Secretary General, Intergovernmental Authority on Development, IGAD, the East African Community, and other partners for their swift engagements with leadership of South Sudan, and indeed other partners by helping to diffuse the tension. South Sudan should surely be rest assured that Africa will not abandon it. We also commend the religious and community leaders and other interest groups for their appeals for calm, national unity, and reconciliation. Such engagements, for sure, must continue earnestly and be sustained, particularly within the framework of the appeals made by the African Union Peace and Security Council, IGAD, the United Nations, and others in their respective statements. The Gambia stands ready, as always, to contribute to the ongoing efforts aimed at bringing peace, security, and stability to the country and indeed the sub-region. The search for lasting peace through reconciliation is a long and arduous task, there's no doubt about that. But it is one that we are steadfastly committed to, including, of course, the call for a decade of peace and reconciliation on the continent. African solidarity will be a critical factor for peace in South Sudan, as is with the crisis in the Central African Republic and elsewhere. I therefore call on our strategic partners in particular to support our joint efforts on the path of peace and stability, particularly in enhancing the leadership role of the African Union, of IGAD, as well as of the United Nations. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, delegates, the insecurity The chaos, as well as the total breakdown of law and order in the Central African Republic continues unabated, of course, as I'm talking to you, despite our best efforts. The daily killings, the maiming, sexual violence, displacement of innocent civilians, all depict a humanitarian catastrophe. And even peacekeepers are not, unfortunately, spared in the process. We have authorized a force and a mission to get the country back to its feet once again. And we must continue to help, particularly to restore security, peace, and stability. The Central African Republic needs all the support it can get from Africa, as well as from the international community as a whole. Combatants must be disarmed, security sector reform must be undertaken, and indeed, political dialogue leading to national reconciliation and the election of an inclusive government must be embarked upon. Africa must own its own peace processes and initiatives. It must be on the driver's seat. MISCA must be supported by Africa. And today, we have the opportunity to demonstrate that. Therefore, I call on you, all of us concerned, to pledge whatever we can. Even a token gesture is significant. I call on the AU Commission to consider ways of organizing a donors conference along the lines, of course, of the one we did for Mali earlier this year. African Union member states must also agree on assessed contributions towards the financing of our peacekeeping missions. We therefore must boost our peace fund. It is now my honor, having said that, and pleasure, to officially declare this meeting open. I thank you all for your kind attention. Thank you. As the chairman of the Peace and Security Council of the African Union, I now have the singular honor, of course, to call upon the chairperson, who is ably represented here by the Peace and Security Council Commission, to deliver his statement. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Excellency, Vice President Aissatu Nji Saidi, Excellencies, Ministers,